So good to be here Sunday night. What a great time we've had already, and so thank you for your welcome. I did fly in on Thursday, left the sunshine behind in Melbourne. 33 in Melbourne. Perth let me down. And so had a great board meeting. You have a great group of board members serving the church, working with Tim and Liesl and led by Mel, and just great-hearted people, really committed to the health and well-being and growth of Riverview. So great to be a part of that. And a really exciting time in the church, coming up to your 40th anniversary. That's going to be a great celebration, looking back at all that God has done in the church up till this point, but most importantly, celebrating what he's doing today and the great future you have as a church. I've been talking all day, so a little stumble there. So good to be a part of it. I hear you've been doing a series called Modern Family. Is that right? Great topic. You know, life is really about loving God, loving people. Jesus summarized a couple of hundred laws from the Torah and just said, hey, if you could love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, that pretty much covers what the whole purpose of our lives is. And so loving God, loving people. How many know loving people's not always easy? Come on, don't look at me so holy tonight. Loving people is not that easy. Years ago, I read a book by John Ortberg, an American pastor. I love the title. The title was, Everyone's Normal Until You Get to Know Them. Everyone's normal until you get to know them. Have you ever been shopping and you get to your favorite shop and there's a bunch of stuff for sale out front and there's just a little sign that says, as is? How many know anything in that pile is not perfect? There's probably something missing, something's not working, something's broken, the instruction manual's not included. If you see the sign as is, you don't expect perfection. Come on, are you with me? You know, if you could just see an as-is sign on everyone in your world, how many know life will go a lot easier? Just see everyone as is. There's no one in your world that's perfect, that has it all together. We've all got something missing, something not quite working, a little bit of dysfunction. Everyone in our world comes as is. And here's the kicker, you need a sign on you too. You come as is. And so just learning to get along with one another is a real art, and it takes some time. Have you ever read the book of Genesis? I mean, just look at the families that began the human story. First family, two brothers, Cain and Abel. How'd they go? Cain killed his brother Abel. Not a great start for ancient family. And then you've got Noah. He was the most righteous person on earth. He got drunk. And then you've got Lot. Lot offers his virgin daughters to the men of Sodom. Later on, those same daughters got him pregnant and impregnated by him. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the heroes of our faith, all played favorites with certain children, causing all kinds of family problems. And then after that, you've got Reuben. He slept with his father's concubine. And then you've got Judah, who slept with his daughter-in-law disguised as a prostitute. I'm just telling you what's in your Bible. You kind of looked a bit shocked that we're talking this way in church. I'm just telling you what's in the Bible. It reads like a script from days of our lives. I mean, these people need a therapist. Some of you are feeling better about your family right now already. You're kind of going, hey, we're doing all right. You know, we're doing okay. None of these people were normal right from the beginning, and none of us are normal either. We all come as is. And so with that introduction, tonight we want to look at the life of Jesus and learn some lessons about how to get along with all the as-is people in our world. See, Jesus didn't come just to die on the cross and rise again. He came to teach us how to live. And in amongst all the miracles and the healings and the teachings, if you just have a look at how Jesus related to people, you can get a bit of a master's degree in relationships. And that's what we're going to endeavor to do tonight. So let's look at some of the skills that Jesus modeled in getting along with people. Number one, if you're taking notes, is to accept people. Jesus had this amazing ability just to accept people as is. Even people on the margins, even people that other people didn't like or despised or looked down on or didn't want to spend time with. Jesus treated everyone with love, with value, with dignity. He treated everyone as a 10. And that acceptance of people had a powerful transformative effect in their lives. In fact, Paul picked this up later in the letter, Romans 15, verse 7. He says this, accept one another just as Christ accepted you in order to bring praise to God. How many know Jesus didn't wait till you got your act together to love you? No, just as we are, as is, Jesus accepts us. He welcomes us. Acceptance doesn't mean approval, but it's this giving of value, giving of honor, giving of worth to each human being. And so if we could just accept the people in our world, what a difference that would make. The truth is, everyone around you, in your family, at your workplace, at school, they're all different than you. And part of accepting people is accepting the differences. A lot has been written, particularly about families, about the differences between, say, men and women. Anyone heard of that best-selling book, Women Are From Venus, Men Are From Mars? Anyone heard of that book? The sequel was Why Men Don't Listen and Why Women Can't Read Maps. And it just kind of highlights some of the funny differences just between men and women. For instance, the average man has 6 items in his bathroom. Toothbrush, toothpaste, razor, shaving cream, bar of soap, and towel he borrowed from the Holiday Inn 10 years ago. The average woman has 467 items in her bathroom, most of them totally unidentifiable by the average male. Are you with me? Different. Not wrong, just different. Communication experts tell us that women speak about 25,000 words a day. Men speak on average 10,000 words a day. So if you're married, your wife needs about 45 to 60 minutes of meaningful conversation a day. Husbands need about 15 to 20 minutes of meaningful conversation, once or twice a week. Now these are stereotypes. In our family, I do more of the talking than Nicole, so, don't box people in, but it just shows that we're different. Well, why don't men like to ask for directions? It's a good question. Some people reckon Israel wandered around the wilderness for 40 years because Moses would not stop and ask for directions. Other people say the reason it takes 4 million male sperm to fertilize one female egg is none of them will stop and ask for directions either. If you didn't understand that, ask your parents at home. Of course, us men know we never get lost. We just discover alternative destinations. What am I saying? Hey, we're all different, and it's okay. Different's not wrong. Don't try to make everyone like you. Be who you are, and just accept people as they are, as is. The world will be a better place if we could just follow Jesus and accept people. Number 2, the second skill we learn from Jesus is to listen. Jesus had so much to say, but it's amazing how often he asked questions. Blind man comes up, he says, "What would you like me to do for you?" Duh, he's blind. Jesus never assumed anything. He said to his disciples, who do you say that I am? Well, people are saying this, people are saying that. But who do you say that I am? How many know when Jesus asks a question, he's not looking for information? It's not like, sorry, what was my name? Jesus, that's what they used to call me. No. He asks questions because he likes to draw people out. Hear what they have to say. Hear what they're feeling. Jesus was a great questioner. He paid attention. His brother James picked this up, and later in a letter, James 1:19-20 says, "My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." Naturally, we're often quick to speak and slow to listen. James watched Jesus. He says, hey, just reverse it. Just be quick to listen and a little slower to speak. Someone once said we've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen twice as much as we speak. We'd look pretty funny with 2 mouths, wouldn't we? 2 mouths and 1 ear? No, 2 ears and 1 mouth. Learn to listen. One of the best gifts you can give people in your family, in your world, is just to ask some genuine questions and give people your full attention. Just listen to them. If you've got teenagers, one of the best things you can do is listen. Listen to what's happening in their world. The trouble is we all develop bad habits. Inattentiveness. We've become preoccupied while someone's talking. We're not concentrating. We're thinking of something else, or we're getting ready to reply. Quit talking while I'm trying to interrupt, You get that later. we're waiting to speak. I'm a bit ADD myself, and my mind's very active. In fact, have you ever seen those news TV channels with the ticker tape on the bottom, where while you're listening to the news, you can check the scores and the weather? I have one here at the top and on both sides. That's what some of our minds are like. So I got all of this activity. So while you're talking, it's a real effort for me to concentrate. So my daughter doesn't say, "Dad, you just asked me that question." And so all of us have some challenges. It's easy to be distracted and to not concentrate. Or we're looking to answer or jump in, or we quickly jump in with some advice. Well, I'll tell you what I do. Or, hey, you know what happened to me? We quickly jump to our story, or we come up with the solution. In fact, men, you know, the number one complaint of men from women is men don't listen. Men listen for a few beats, and then they put their Mr. Fix-It cap on, and then they jump in with their solution. Guys, a little tip. Women don't want your solutions. They just want to be heard. Ladies, I'm trying to help you here. You could give me a little bit more love there. Guys, I'm trying to help you too. Some free marriage counseling. Women don't want to be fixed. They just want to be understood. They just want to be heard. So just hold back a little bit with your advice. Thank you, Mark. This was really good preaching tonight. Really glad that you're here. Thank you for coming. Just encouraging myself a little. So simple, accept, and just take time to listen and to concentrate, to look at that person in the eye, to give them your full attention, to ask some further questions. Tell me a little bit more about that. How did that feel for you? Just go a little deeper. Don't just move on so quickly. Thirdly, we learn from Jesus to be empathetic. Not pathetic, empathetic. Empathy means to feel with, empathos. Jesus not only listened to people's words, he looked beyond the words and what they were saying to their heart and what was happening deep inside of them. One of the great examples of this is John 4. He's down by the well. He's actually tired. He's hungry. Disciples have gone off to get some lunch. While he's at a well, a Samaritan woman rocks up the middle of the day, which is interesting because most women drew water in the morning, but she comes alone. In that culture, men didn't talk to women in public, and Jews didn't talk to Samaritans. But see, Jesus accepts everyone as is. So he breaks those cultural barriers, and he has a conversation with her. As it turns out, after chatting about water and Jacob's well and a little detour about worship, here's a woman who's been married 5 times, divorced 5 times, is now living with a man who's not her husband. Talk about pain. Talk about disappointment. Talk about shame. Here's a woman who's got a trail of broken relationships, and she still hasn't found what she's looking for. Jesus doesn't give her a lecture on divorce and remarriage. Jesus looks beneath the surface of her conversation and realizes here's a woman who's thirsty for something that truly satisfies. And just the words of Jesus, he says to her, if you only knew the generosity of God. Now just think about this woman in society. She's coming as is. And Jesus says, if you only knew the generosity of God, the gift of God, you would ask me and I would give you living water that you'll never thirst again. Her life is transformed. She goes back to the village. You know the story. But I want you to notice Jesus doesn't just listen. It's not just a conversation, words being exchanged. Jesus looks deep into the heart and he deeply understands. You know, one of the greatest relational pains is to be misunderstood. When you feel misunderstood, that's a deeply painful experience. When someone takes time to truly understand you, it's transformative. You know, my dad passed away in February, age 92. My dad was an orphan. He grew up in Salvation Army boys' home, foster homes, child of the state. Never knew his mum or his dad. Eventually married my mother, and he tried to be to my sister Sharon and I the father he never had. And he did a terrific job. He wasn't perfect, but he did a terrific job. You know, one of the things that my dad disappointed me in is as I was growing up, he would often miss my birthdays. be a birthday party and Dad would go, "Oh, sorry, son, I'm actually out of town. I booked some work. Sorry, I didn't realize that." He regularly missed my birthdays and basketball finals. And, we kind of worked through it. It was a bit hurtful at the time, but you kind of get over it, you move on. I was early 40s and I was reading a book called Manhood, and it talks about how men need to understand their father. Because whether you realize it or not, your dad's in you. And if you can, have a conversation with your dad and try to understand his childhood, his growing up. And so anyway, I read this book, so I ended up having lunch with Dad, and I was just chatting. Say, "Dad, man, I think single parents are heroes, raising kids by themselves, mum or dad alone, but you had no dad or mum. Like, what was that like growing up?" I just asked questions and I listened, and he told me a bunch of stories and meandered. Somewhere in one of the stories, he just had this throwaway sentence and moved on. He goes, "Mark, I don't think I ever had a birthday party until I married your mother." And then he kept talking. I went, "What? What did you just say?" He says, I don't ever remember having a birthday party until I was an adult. It didn't excuse him missing my birthday parties, but I suddenly understood my dad a little bit more deeply. He had never had anyone celebrate significant moments growing up. He had no memory. He had no record of that. It wasn't even in his psyche. Can I just say, everyone has a story. Everyone has a story. We often get annoyed at this level, but if you'll just slow down and go, I wonder what their story is. I wonder what's happening in their life. Empathy is a fantastic gift in our relationships. Number 4 is to be authentic. Jesus had this amazing ability to be real, to be honest, to be transparent. He let people see his joy. He let people see his anger. He even let people see his sadness. John 11:35, shortest verse in the Bible. I memorized it in Sunday school. Jesus wept. Jesus wasn't afraid to let people see his emotion, which is, I think, inspiring for us today in our image management, impression management society. Always looking good, the snapshot, the Facebook, the Instagram. You wonder what's happening before and after the snapshot, don't you? Jesus was authentic. It's interesting today, the emphasis on vulnerability. People love vulnerability. They're not looking for a perfect hero. They're looking for a real hero. Jesus was vulnerable. Here's an example, Matthew 26, Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus takes 12 of his disciples, and then he says to 3 of them, Peter, James, and John, "Would you come with me?" And then he says this, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow. To the point of death, would you stay here and keep watch with me?" This is Jesus. I think it should read like this. Jesus said to them, "Hey guys, it's going to get a little tough, but don't worry. I'll be back in 3 days, going to kick the devil's butt. It's all good." It's like, this is Jesus. This is the conqueror. Here is Jesus, God and human, all together going, "I'm feeling overwhelmed. Could you stay with me and pray?" So many insights from the story. One little sideline is that relationships are spatial. Jesus had the crowd, thousands of people he was acquainted with. He then had 70 who he was discipling and doing a lot of time with. Then he had 12 who were his small group. Then he had 3 very best friends, Peter, James, and John. And then we're told John was his best friend, although it's John that tells us that he was his best friend. So maybe the others thought that too. Crowd, 70, 12, 3, 1. Relationships are spatial. Do you have the right people in the right space in your life? Sometimes we've got people that are really close and influencing us, possibly negative, and we don't want to eliminate them from our life, but maybe they need to be a little further out. Maybe there's people that really could be a positive influence in our life that we've got at a distance that we actually need to bring a little closer. Have you got the right people in the right positions in your life? Jesus is not talking to the crowd. "Hey, I'm feeling overwhelmed." He's not talking to the crowd. He's not even talking to the 70 or the 12. He's talking to 3 of his best friends. Do you have some people in your life who can say, "How you doing, really?" And there's a safe environment for you to be vulnerable and open. I once had a lunch with a pastor who's a good friend of mine. We sat down for lunch. I go, "Hey, how's it going?" He goes, "Awesome." Started telling me all the great things happening in his life. And then when he's done, he said, "How are you doing?" I thought, will I do the awesome thing or will I be honest? And I chose the latter. I said, "Actually, been a little tough lately." I just disclosed and shared a few challenges and things happening in my life. You know, the whole conversation changed. In fact, when I was done, you know what he said? Actually, I'm not doing too well either. See, the degree of openness determines the degree of intimacy in a relationship. If you're always great, yeah, it's good, it's all fine. Everyone thinks you're great, it's good, it's fine. Sometimes the best gift you can give someone is being honest about how you're doing. Actually, it's been a little tough lately. Now, little tip here. When you're open, not everyone knows how to handle that. How many know Jesus' best friends did a great job supporting him? They fell asleep in Jesus' prayer meeting. That's one prayer meeting you don't want to fall asleep in. Jesus just opened up his heart and you've just fallen asleep. And you know, some people when you open up, they freak out a little bit. But there's still a benefit in you being vulnerable. And Jesus models that. In fact, I think all of our relationships would deepen if we'd simply just take the mask off and be a little bit real. You know, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay. And I know Riverview is a place where it's okay to not be okay. Because that's where we can be a support and a comfort to one another. Number 5, a couple more. Number 5 is to forgive. It's inevitable that somewhere someone will offend you, in your family, even at church. I think I shared last year on Father's Day, you know, every church has what I'd call Mr. and Mrs. Sandpaper. You know, people who just rub you the wrong way. Again, you might be sitting next to them tonight. Just look straight ahead. You know, just those annoying people that they're just ornery. Every church has them. And here's a little tip for you. You know, you can leave Riverview and go to another church. They've got cousins everywhere. They do. I'm just trying to save you some time. And so the issue is not get away from those annoying people. The issue is what is God wanting to do in you through them? Have you discovered character develops in a situation opposite to the character quality? I'm very patient when I'm not waiting. I'm very forgiving when no one's offended me. So, do you have an opportunity to forgive? Jesus in Matthew 18:15 says, if your brother or sister sins, offends, annoys you, go. Everyone say go. Go and point out their fault, just the two of you. If they listen, great. And then he goes on and says, if it doesn't work, get someone else involved. The word go, in the Greek, the original etymology of the word go in the Greek language, it actually means go. I went to Bible college. I have a doctor of theology. Go means go. It doesn't mean pray. It doesn't mean pass it on. It means go. I reckon it's the most disobeyed commandment of Jesus. And if we would just go, we would save a lot of stuff in families and in churches. Go and sort it out. And you know, the challenge there, it's anger that gets us in trouble. It's pride that keeps us there. Anger gets us in trouble, but it's pride that gets us stuck. And so it takes some humility to go and sort it out. Now, when we go for that moment of sorting it out, in most conflicts, there are wrongs on both sides. Let's just say you've had a conflict and the other person is 90% wrong and you're 10% wrong. That's a pretty good ratio, isn't it? It's so easy to focus on their 90%. Well, you don't know you don't know my boss. You don't know my mother. We focus on their 90%, and what happens? It just heats up again. If we could just focus on our 10% and just learn to say things like, I'm sorry. 2 words. Let's practice. Ready? A little bit more sincerely. 1, 2, 3. Hold on. What am I sorry for? It may just be, I'm sorry for reacting. I'm sorry for speaking so loud. Just take your 10%. And you know what happens when you say I'm sorry? See, a conflict is like a rope with knots in it. Just the air's taken out. The tension's palpable. When you say I'm sorry, you start to undo one of those knots. Proverb says a soft answer turns away wrath. And usually when you say I'm sorry, not always, but often the other person will go, yeah, look, I'm sorry too. And suddenly you're untangling that knot. But go first. Go first. Deal with your contribution. And value the relationship over the issue. We did a series on conflict in church many years ago, and we had a bit of a drama. It was back in the days of drama, and we had there's still drama now, but we had a mic stand here with a card on it, and this card was green on this side and orange on this side, green and orange. Two friends came up the aisle, Brett and Adrian, good mates. They're chatting away. How you going, Brett? How you going, Adrian? They get to the front. Brett goes over here. Adrian goes over here. Brett goes, hey, check out the green card. Adrian goes, it's orange. What do you mean? Brett goes, it's green. Adrian goes, you're an idiot. It's orange. They start this huge argument over this card. Brett reckons it's green. Adrian reckons it's orange. They get the church involved. What color it is? Orange, green, orange. We've got this huge division in the church. Division is division. Two ways of seeing the one thing. And so they're abusing each other. We've got orange, green, orange, green. Now, how are you going to fix this? The first thing you've got to do is work on the relationship. Because if you just start with the issue, what color is it? Orange, green. Just start the conflict all over again. We had to get Brett and Adrian, and Brett goes, I'm really sorry for calling you a blind bat. I'm really sorry for calling you an idiot and a jerk. We dealt with the relationship, and then something magic happens. Adrian actually walks over and stands where Brett's standing, goes, oh my goodness, I can see from where you're standing, it's green. And then Brett goes over this side and stands where Adrian's going, oh, that's incredible. From where you're standing, it's orange. But if you don't deal with the relationship, you'll never get to deal with the issue. See, most things are green and orange. Just depends where you're standing, which perspective you have. So we've got to value being reconciled more than being right, fighting for our orange, fighting for our green. We've got to value the relationship more than the issue. And sometimes we can sort that out ourselves. Sometimes we need a third party. We need help. A few years ago, I had a day off. Nicole and I went for a bit of a drive, country part of Melbourne, out by Cardinia Reservoir, and we're going along this dirt road. Been out for lunch, and as we're driving, we saw some emus. I often see kangaroos, but emus are a little bit more rare. So we said, hey, let's stop. Let's go check it out, take a photo. So we stopped. I started reversing to see the emus. I didn't realize there was a huge ditch to the left of the road. So we started sliding. I quickly put on the brakes. Nicole got out. She's directed me. She says, okay, go back a little bit. I went back and we went further down. She says, try going forward. I went further down. We're stuck, middle of nowhere. Who are you going to call? Ghostbusters. What have you been teaching here? Someone said Jesus. Ghostbusters, Jesus. Who else? Superman. Well, in Melbourne, you call the RACV. And so I got on the phone and I said, hey, we're a little bit stuck. And anyway, so we had about a 30-minute wait. It was a long 30 minutes. We had a bit of intense fellowship about my driving skills. Eventually, four-wheel drive came around the corner, a bit beat up, a guy with a couple of teeth missing, winds his window down and says, hello. I go, oh, we're waiting for the RACV. He goes, I am the RACV, And in just a couple of moments, he had us out of there. Can I say, as a guy, it was pretty humiliating and embarrassing to get on the phone and go, I need help. I'm stuck. But if I hadn't have had the humility to say I need help, I would still be there and I wouldn't be speaking here tonight. What's my point? Sometimes in our families, in marriage, in workplace, we get stuck. And the two of you can't sort it out. It's okay to say, I need a little help. So it's okay to call Ghostbusters, whoever your helpers are, and say, give me a little help in my relationships. Don't stay stuck. Number 6, couple more. Number 6 is to confront lovingly. Some of you are here going, this is so nice, accept, be empathetic. Where's the grit? Well, here's the grit right here. Confront lovingly. This is not loving confronting. If you love confronting, you've got another problem. This is confronting lovingly. Jesus accepted, loved, all those things we talked about, but he also confronted. Disciples were doing some ministry and some kids came in the room. They said, get those kids out of here. Jesus rebuked them and says, hey, let the kids come. Kids matter to me. So Jesus confronted his disciples, the crowd. He knew what it was to confront. You know, we all have blind spots. We all have things in our life we don't see, and we need others to help us. If my zipper's down tonight, tell me. Don't laugh at me. It's okay, I checked beforehand. But if you tell me my zipper's down and I punch you and say, don't you criticize me? How many know you'll think twice before giving me feedback again? We need feedback. How well do we receive feedback? Paul picked this up in Ephesians 4:15. Speak the truth in love. Then we're going to grow to become like Christ, the head of the church. Some people are truthful, but they're not very loving. Other people are very loving, but they don't speak the truth. Which way do you lean? If you're a truth teller, you may need to learn to be a bit more loving in your truth telling. If you're a real loving person, your danger is what I call a superficial niceness. Oh, bless you, love you. That was fantastic. No, if you're on the loving side, you've got to learn to be a bit more truthful. See, there's a big difference between being aggressive and being assertive. Don't be aggressive, but some of you need to learn to be assertive. Even in your family, say, that really annoys me when you do that. You know, that really hurts. It's okay to be Christian and assertive. The Apostle Paul once said to a leader, do you know I'm a Roman citizen? What's he doing? He's actually standing on his rights. And so sometimes we need to speak the truth in love to one another so that we can grow. Years ago, one of my jobs in my mid-20s on staff at church was to pick up guest speakers. We had a speaker from Africa named Elijah Maswanganji. And he came, that's a big name, isn't it? He was a big man. He came and spoke at our church, did a men's event, spoke on the weekend. And anyway, Monday, I'm driving him to the airport. About an hour's drive in Melbourne back in those days. And so on the way to the airport, hey, thank you, Pastor Elijah. It was a great weekend. He started encouraging me. You know, Mark, you're a good young leader, great future, great potential. Then he said this, you've got a couple of things you need to work on. The tone in the car changed. He says, first of all, you need to smile. You're very tall and you're very intimidating. A smile warms people. Learn to smile. Then he shared a few other things we don't have time to talk about tonight. Look at you guys. Anyway, I dropped him at the airport fairly quickly. And then I started the long drive home. I was annoyed. I thought, smile. Gee, I'm smiling on the inside. But after a couple of days, I realized he was right. So I started to drive down the road. Get into the lift. Just started smiling everywhere. In fact, I was in Adelaide a few years later, and someone came up and said, you're the smiling preacher. I thought, Elijah, where are you now? You know, when he gave me that feedback, it was not easy to take. But I'm thankful for someone who had the courage to lovingly confront me to help me be a better person. May we be a community where we have the courage and the consideration to speak the truth to one another in a loving manner. Final skill from Jesus, number 7, is to encourage. Jesus was getting baptized. He came up out of the water, and the Father burst out of heaven and goes, that's my boy. That's my translation. This is my beloved son. I'm so pleased with him. Jesus hadn't preached a sermon. He hadn't healed anybody. He hadn't done anything, and the Father's going, that's my boy. You know, we all thrive under encouragement. It's like oxygen for the soul. And so in your family, don't just think good things about your family members, your parents. Don't wait till their funeral to say how amazing they were. Say thank you. You know, often we feel thanks, but we don't express it. Jesus healed 10 lepers. Only one said thank you. You think the other 9 were ungrateful? I don't think any of them went home and said, man, I missed my leprosy. I'm so annoyed. Jesus healed me today. They were all grateful. Only one took time to say, thank you, Jesus. When's the last time you thanked people in your family, people in your world, leaders, encouragement? So very, very powerful. So as we wrap this up, I've got 2 questions for you. Number 1, which skill modeled by Jesus would you benefit from developing a little further right now? The goal of this message is not to give you 7 more things to do. You're busy people. Which one skill would make the biggest difference in your relationships right now? Is it forgiving? Is it listening a little better? Which one skill? Just choose one. Secondly, which relationship in your world right now needs the most attention? Relationships are like bank accounts. You can make deposits and you can make withdrawals. If you make a lot of deposits, you can make a withdrawal every now and then and you'll be okay. But if you don't make many deposits and you just keep making withdrawals, at some point, it's going to bounce. Which relationship right now is the lowest balance? Needs a deposit from you. You know, it takes 2 people to make a relationship work, but one person can affect the relationship. You know, year 10, I've been living in America with my family, came back to year 10 in Melbourne just for the year. I'd become a bit of an all-American kid. I went to America and someone said, "What's your name?" I said, "My name's Mark." He called me Mike for 10 days. So I learned to say Mark. My name's Mark Harner. So I've got a very American accent. I come onto campus, this is many years ago. Anyone remember Happy Days? The Fonz? Like I was the spitting image of Richie Cunningham. I had red hair. So I come onto campus, everyone's going, "Hey Richie, hey Richie." Anyway, strong American accent. I rock up to PE class. Now, the teacher was a man who was well beyond retirement age. And last year, and his name was Mr. Grouch. He was German and he was a grouch. Everyone called him Mr. Grouch, Mr. Grouch, Mr. Grouch. Anyway, I rock up mid-term because North America, South America, they don't match the school years. So I rock up, he goes, "Hey, new kid in class, what's your name?" I said, "My name is Mark Harner." He goes, "Yankee boy, huh?" I said, "No, Mark Harner." He goes, "Okay, Yankee boy." This man had a real hatred for Americans. And from that moment on in class, he did everything he could to make life difficult for me. He called me Yankee boy every class. Kids would do their homework and they'd get an A and he'd give me a C- or a D. He just went out of his way to show spite towards me. I'm in year 10, I'm just a kid. I remember going home from school in tears some days. I said to my mum and dad, "I hate that man. I hate that man. What have I done to him? I'm not even American. I was born in Melbourne." And I wanted to leave his class. I was so angry. And I thought and prayed and said, "God help me." And somewhere in my small teenage brain, I said, "You know what? I can't control the way this man's treating me, but I'm going to choose to treat him with respect." I didn't feel any warmth for him. I really hated that man. But you know, every class, when everyone else was calling him Mr. Grouch, I said, "Yes, Mr. Grouch." "Okay, Yankee boy." I just tried to come back at him with the opposite spirit. You know, after a couple of months, I saw this old, hardened German man just begin to soften a little bit. We started playing basketball, and I was pretty good at basketball. Started giving me better grades. I actually remember the day he called me Mark instead of Yankee boy. Yes. And as a young person, I learned that even one person can change a relationship. We never became best friends. But I learned that I don't have to be a reactive person. I can actually proactively not return the way someone's treating me. Have you got a Mr. Grouch in your world right now? Got someone that's kind of throwing stuff at you? What could you do maybe to shift that relationship? I'm not saying stay in an abusive environment or just come under bullies, but we can all make a difference. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you for coming and not just doing miracles and teaching and healing, but teaching us how to live, how to get along with people in this as-is world. So I pray for everyone in the room tonight, everyone listening online. Lord, just that one skill you tapped us on the shoulder about. May we not just hear the message tonight and go away and say, "Hey, visiting guy was okay." But may we do something about what we've heard, just to improve that one skill. And I pray for that one relationship we've all got in mind. We can see that person's face. The bank account's really low. Maybe it's even bounced. Maybe there's tension. Just that one relationship. We can't fix it all by ourselves, but with your help, with your grace, we can come with the opposite spirit. We can do good when someone else is doing evil. We can bless when someone else is cursing. Maybe some of us have got a Mr. Grouch in our world. Help us to truly love, which is not a feeling, but a choice to do what's best for the other person. And so I pray for a healing anointing of your Spirit right now to come into relationships that have been wounded and bruised and damaged. God, would you restore? Would you heal today? And Lord, for some here listening online in the room, that maybe the one relationship that needs work is between them and God, between them and you. Lord, you're so close to them. You're not far from any one of us. And so I pray that you'd make yourself real. And as they're reaching out in their heart to you, even now, you'd embrace them. You'd let them know that you love them incredibly. And I pray that that would be a transformative, defining moment for them tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Everyone said amen. Amen. How about we give Jesus a big clap tonight? Awesome. 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 Fantastic. Love being with you today. Thanks very much, Riverview.